After a fierce firefight, troops from Chad retake a Nigerian border town from Boko Haram, killing 200 militants. As health activists work to increase vaccinations around the world, in the U.S., some parents are saying no thanks to vaccines. And when it comes to success, she can't shake it off. More good news for Taylor Swift as she becomes a member of an elite pop music club. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Now, fighters from the Nigerian terrorist group Boko Haram killed dozens of people Thursday in northern Cameroon as cross-border clashes continued between the insurgents and multiple governments trying to defeat them. Cameroon's Minister of Communications, Issa Echiroma Bakari, says at least 800 fighters burned churches, mosques and villages as they slaughtered people who resisted joining them in fighting against Cameroonian forces. Well, a day earlier, Chadian forces battled with Boko Haram militants in the Nigerian town of Gambaru before the insurgents moved into Cameroon to attack the residents of Fotokol, killing more than 70 people. Local residents say the insurgents entered mosques and slit the throats of Muslims who had gathered for early morning prayers. An unidentified army officer says he was shocked by what he had found in the aftermath of Boko Haram's presence in that area.
We dispersed them completely, and we have prevented them from regathering. They acquired weapons and were killing people. It's not godly. What they were doing, you can't slaughter humans like animals. They were putting their knives here. This is the first time I've encountered something like this.
Well, the African Union last week authorized a regional force of 7,500 troops to fight the militants. Well, the much-anticipated Nigerian presidential election is just 9 days away, and concerns are growing that many of the citizens displaced by violence in the northeast may not be able to cast their votes. There are indications that Nigeria may extend a deadline for the distribution of voter ID cards for vote beyond next week, next Sunday. But there are no considerations of delaying the election. President Goodluck Jonathan faces ex-military ruler Muhammadu Buhari in the February 14th election, and there are grave doubts over whether voting can happen in swathes of the northeast overrun by rebels. As they are mostly opposition strongholds, Buhari stands to lose out the most. Boko Haram militants are stepping up their campaign of violence ahead of the election. The military repelled an attack by insurgents on the outskirts of the northeast's main city of Maiduguri on Sunday, their second assault in a week on a city they hope to make the capital of a breakaway Islamist state. Addressing journalists in Nigeria's capital city, Abuja, the Electoral Commissioner for the Independent Nigerian Electoral Committee, INEC, said internally displaced persons will be able to cast their votes in centers that will be set up close to the camps.
We don't encourage voting in IDP camps because there's a lot more people outside the camps than in the camps. So the team that recommended the IDP voting, the committee that came up with the modalities, recommended we find a center near the camps but not necessarily within the camps, identified as a local government voting area, and people, so that people outside the camps could also vote.
Before now, the law stated that people must go home if they wanted to participate. But for many displaced voters, the idea of going back to their home constituencies, as they legally must do in order to cast their ballots, is too harrowing to contemplate.
We've made preparations for IDP voting at the states where there are IDP camps. But I cannot tell you the exact number of IDPs that collected their cards. But I told you the percentage of voters that collected their cards in Borno State, which was 56%, and about 70% in Yobe State, because Yobe didn't have the crisis of IDPs as much as Borno State.
The Electoral Commission also said that Nigeria may delay its February 14th presidential elections if the number of voter ID cards INEC can distribute by February 8 is too low. Zachary made it clear that no decision had been taken. Well, for more perspective on the Nigerian presidential election, I'm joined live via Skype from Nashville, Tennessee, by Professor Moses Ochono of Vanderbilt University. Professor Ochono, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
And we're hearing two different voices. There are those who want this election to go ahead as scheduled. Others are saying, no, there should be some delay. Why are those voices different? Why do those who want it to continue as scheduled want it to be so?
I think on the one hand, you have people who are concerned that with such shoddy preparations for the elections, if the elections were to hold, it will be very difficult to argue for the credibility of the elections and their outcomes. But on the other hand, there's no appetite, really. If you survey the country, there's very little appetite for delay because people just want to have the elections and get it over with and go on with their lives. Now, there's a lot of tension in the country already, and to delay the election would be to intensify this tension and the likelihood of trouble. Nobody wants that. But
one would think that one thing that will cause tension is millions of people being unable to cast their votes because they've been displaced or because they're under threat.
Absolutely. In the Northeast, certainly there are problems. There are areas that are under Boko Haram's control. Elections cannot hold in those areas. But you also have the IDP camps. And so the challenge is for the Electoral Commission to figure out a way to get ballot papers and voters' cards to the people in the IDP camps. And in the areas of the Northeast that are not under Boko Haram, to conduct elections in those areas. Because otherwise, the credibility of the election would be in doubt, and the outcomes would certainly be questioned.
And actually, do you think or do you fear that the opposition could actually use that to dispute the result of the February 14th election?
Absolutely, and it would be on sound legal ground to do so, because the Electoral Act says clearly that elections have to take place all over the country simultaneously for the election to be valid. So the opposition certainly has raised some concerns that the Northeast is where it expects to do very well. At least two of those states, the states in the Northeast, are governed by APC members of the opposition. So, the opposition has a very sound basis to suspect that if elections don't hold in those areas, the credibility of the elections would certainly be, and the outcome could be questioned. And especially if it doesn't win, then of course it has a basis to question the overall exercise.
Well, such a dicey situation. Professor Ochono, thank you very much for your sharing your perspectives with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Professor Moses Ochono of Vanderbilt University joining us from Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee. Well, a rising number of women have experienced sexual violence since the Central African Republic descended into a spiral of sectarian conflict in 2013. Well, many are left with lifelong trauma, but the humanitarian group Doctors Without Borders has opened centers for rape victims to receive care and psychological support in several locations in the capital, Bangui. Emily Eob tells us more about it.
This young woman came in time. She was raped less than 72 hours ago, so she still has a chance to be given treatment to prevent HIV/AIDS and an unwanted pregnancy. But nurse Sylvie Gonekra says most women come much later after their assault.
For women in the Central African Republic, a rape is shameful, so they don't want to talk about it. So sometimes women are raped but don't come to the hospital. They remain in their neighborhood sad and alone. They shut themselves in.
Data on sexual violence in the CAR is scarce, while the need for help for women is great. It has been nearly 2 years since a coup sparked a bloody sectarian conflict. An interim government and international peacekeepers are working to restore some order, but violence continues. To try to begin to address the trauma, Doctors Without Borders, also known by its French acronym MSF, opened a facility in July in the capital to deal with both the medical and the psychological needs of rape victims. In the last 5 months, they have received more than 500 victims. They have since opened the second center in Bangui as a radio and poster awareness campaign reaches more people needing help. Counselors say the first step is to let people talk about their trauma, like this woman.
I think about my husband all the time. He ran away from the house as the Seleka stormed the town and killed the men. I haven't heard of him in a year. I think he's dead by now.
To reassure, to calm, and to listen. But before that can happen, psychologist Roselyne Menon says the first challenge is to help victims understand what a psychologist is in a country where this is not commonplace.
There's no training to become a psychologist here. They merely do not exist. I'm here to make them understand that there are visible wounds on the body, but also invisible ones inside the head.
Menon says she sees women of all ages, sometimes children and a few men. The victims are marginalized by the stigma of rape and they have no one to talk to. Denise, not her real name, has been coming for counseling for 2 weeks and she says it is helping.
Maman Roséline, le monde a mentionné encore.
After I was assaulted, my husband rejected me. I was totally devastated. And Rosalind gave me good advice. She said it wasn't my fault, that I didn't break my marriage promise to be faithful by being raped.
Aside from individual consultations, MSF has put in place a support group for victims to share their experiences with each other.
One of the good things about this support group is that the women, they are all victims of sexual violence, could get together and talk, and they all told me. I thought I was alone.
There are currently only 2 rape counseling centers in the country, both run by MSF in Bangui. Emilie Yob for VOA News in Bangui.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, the U.S. measles outbreak has health officials pleading with parents to just say yes to vaccines. Stay with us.
I'm Millar Sega. I'm the host of VOA's The Correspondents, a roundup of the world's top stories with analysis from our dedicated reporters. It's really a conversation the same way that you would bring a friend to your home and ask them what's going on. And our correspondents will do that and answer those questions through their own eyes.
That appears a false choice in more ways than one.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close. In 30 minutes, we'll show you the world.
Well, it's time for our health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with a look at the measles outbreak in the United States. Lino.
Hello, Vincent. A measles outbreak in the United States is causing great concern among experts and parents alike. VOA's Carol Person has this report.
It started here in Disneyland, often portrayed as the happiest place on Earth. Since January 1st, it's also been known as ground zero of a measles outbreak in the U.S. that may have far-reaching consequences. Measles is a highly contagious disease. It can rob a child of hearing, vision, intellect, and even life. Yet a significant number of American parents, including many in California, are choosing not to vaccinate their children. They cite concerns about side effects, including autism, but there is no link between autism and the vaccine, say specialists like Dr. Martha Rivera.
There's no risk of autism. That was disproven. So it is a good, safe vaccine, and all the fear factors have been taken away.
Some of the world's top infectious disease experts say vaccines are not only medically effective, they are cost-effective, eliminating the financial burden of treating preventable diseases. Dr. Anthony Fauci spoke about this in an earlier interview with VOA.
If you had to pick out one intervention, if you balance the investment you make in the research and the implementation with the health benefit, vaccines have to be either the top or very much in the short list.
Dr. Seth Berkley agrees.
Vaccines are, among the most effective and cost-effective interventions that exist.
In Somalia, vaccination programs are a cause for celebration. Since it was founded 15 years ago, Gavi estimates it has immunized more than 500 million children and, as a result, saved more than 6 million young lives around the world. Gavi is looking to immunize more than 300 million children in the next few years. Meanwhile, in the U.S., experts say childhood diseases have become rare because vaccines are so effective. In this sense, vaccines are a victim of their own success. Carol Pearson, VOA News.
Joining us live via Skype from New York City for more on the measles outbreak is Dr. Robert Kisala, head of measles and rubella for UNICEF. Dr. Kisala, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Nice you having me.
First off, help us understand this. How virulent is measles?
Thank you. Measles is probably one of the most contagious or virulent virus that is known to man. If a non-immune person comes in contact with somebody transmitting the virus, the chances are 9 out of 10 chances that they will catch the virus. In addition, even when somebody had left the room, the infectious person, some say up to 1 hour, up to 2 hours, the non-immune person comes in, that person could still get the virus from the air, which is as opposed to other diseases which might be communicable but need close contact. Measles does not need close contact because it goes through the air.
Okay.
The first is the infectiousness. The second is, of course, the side effects, the complications which come from the measles measles infection.
Okay, now help us understand this as well. Some parents opt out of vaccinating their children against measles for various reasons. We've seen the autism debate. How do you respond to that? What can you say exactly with regards to measles vaccines?
I can sum it up as a luxury of choice and a total ignorance about science and beliefs that have no founding. We know that, for example, in the War of Independence, more soldiers died from measles than from on the battlefield. Similarly, we used to have a lot of deaths in USA, which have been reduced to almost none because of the measles vaccine. In countries in Africa where UNICEF works, we used to have up to 150,000 childhood deaths annually. We have reduced this to about 70% in years using a measles vaccine.
Now, quickly in 5 seconds, to what extent is this outbreak in the United States a concern for Africa? Very quickly.
It probably may not be, and hopefully it will generate a debate which will lead to more resources available for international programs, because measles anywhere is measles everywhere. This is a global concern.
Okay, Dr. Kisala, thank you so much for joining us. And that was Dr. Robert Kisala, head of measles and rubella for UNICEF. And that's our Africa Health Report for today. Back to you, Vincent.
Well, thanks a lot, Lenore. Be sure to watch Lenore Mudu's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. Well, now let's talk about food. Most Africans buy their food at open-air food markets that would make many hygiene-cautious Westerners squirm. But a new study from the Nairobi-based International Livestock Research Institute has yielded a surprising finding that some goods from these informal markets are no less safe or fresh than what is found in the Western-style African supermarkets that are spreading across the continent. VOA's Anita Powell reports from Johannesburg.
Scenes like this are familiar to most African shoppers. Open-air food markets, like this one in Johannesburg. They supply as much as 95% of the continent's food. But this, too, is becoming a more frequent sight on this continent. Mega supermarket chains, whose brightly lit aisles and plastic-wrapped goods are a world away from those open-air markets. A new study by the International Livestock Research Institute looked at informal markets in 8 African countries and yielded a surprising finding. When it comes to food safety and freshness, looks can be deceiving.
Just because a product carries a label
or is presented in a shiny environment, it doesn't necessarily mean it's safe.
She pointed to several examples in Nairobi, where informal sellers say they take health precautions before selling their goods.
I make sure the milking water is boiled, and the milker washes his hands before milking.
And vendors often take an additional step.
When I receive the milk, I boil it first to confirm the freshness.
And Russell notes, informal markets fulfill an important economic role.
They give work for so many and food to so many. And when you go into a village in Kenya, you will see there's no supermarket. So if it was not for the informal markets, where else would those people buy their food?
It's a good question, and one that many here in Johannesburg already know the answer to. Many shoppers here said the prices are lower than in supermarkets, and the goods fresher. Many Western nations are also returning to locally sourced, more natural food options, a model that Africa has used for centuries. Anita Powell, VOA News, Johannesburg.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, Taylor Swift is on a roll, and her success has landed her in an exclusive club. We'll have details when we come back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. Australian journalist Peter Greste returns home after spending a year in an Egyptian prison. In Nigeria, Chad's army says it killed more than 200 Boko Haram militants in a battle to recapture a town in northeastern Nigeria. In the DRC, the internet and mobile networks are down in the capital Kinshasa, reportedly on orders of the government to quell deadly protests. And finally, Ivory Coast becomes the first team to reach the finals of the Africa Cup of Nations this year. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Well, don't mess with the Lohans. Lindsay and Mom Dina have hit Fox News with a defamation lawsuit of allegations they used cocaine together. Now, the lawsuit references an episode of Sean Hannity's show a year ago when Hannity and a guest were discussing the celebrities who had died of drug overdose. In the legal documents, the Lohans allegedly came up in a discussion as early train wrecks and tragedy about to happen. Yikes! Now the Lohans are demanding the clip be taken off the Hannity website permanently, and they are asking for an unspecified amount of punitive damages. Well, next up, a pop superstar joins an elite club. Well, Taylor Swift's hit album 1989 regained the top spot in the weekly Billboard 200 album chart, giving the singer the distinction of being the second woman in history to have two albums hit #1 for at least 10 weeks. Swift's milestone puts her behind the late Whitney Houston, who had 3 albums top the charts for at least 10 weeks. Swift's second album, Fearless, spent 11 weeks at the top. And finally, keeping up with the Kardashian star, Bruce Jenner's mother has confirmed that he is undergoing the transition to become a woman. Esther Jenner has spoken out about the dramatic changes he is facing, admitting she has never been more proud of Bruce. Mama Jenner added that she was unaware of his wishes until very recently, but commented further that she is right behind him through his journey, but Bruce's mother isn't supportive of her son's entire transformation. She has told him she hates his hair. And that is what is trending today. Well, 500 fellows from President Barack Obama's Young African Leaders Initiative visited the United States last year to study in management, leadership, and entrepreneurship. One of them is Uganda's Mildred Apenyo.
The Yali Fellowship has meant growth, it has meant friendship, it has meant confronting the ways that, the things within me that were limiting me. Growth never stops, you never stop making yourself better. It has meant fast friendships, quick sisterhoods. I love my female friends, my female friendships. And when I meet a woman and our spirits immediately bond and we immediately become sisters, I love that. And it has happened so many times with Yali. The other Mandela Washington Fellows have become my family again. It's really a family, and a really useful family because of all the networks, the large networks. So it's created closer relationships with different fellows who I had never met. It has just given me, more places I can go when I visit different areas in Africa. That's one of the biggest things this experience has given me. It has given me an insight into how government or a group of people can work with small businesses. And I really intend to make that one of my projects going forward, a society that gives women the level of safety and wellness that they deserve and ensures that our young men who are going to be men are the kinds of people who facilitate this safety and wellness and enjoy it too. They were so open to learning new things because I was teaching African yoga. Oh, it was so much fun. You guys have such a cool class. A woman from the class had said this was the best yoga class she had ever attended. I was like, this is amazing. I even offered to teach again. It brought me joy that people were so receptive. The world is ready for African yoga and we're willing to share it. To be honest, I'm ready to get home and apply these many things I've learned, not just to the business, but to my team as well, because I can't do it alone. I would not have known, I would not have realized that I am powerful beyond measure. Yeah, it has meant a whole lot to me.
Right. I need some of that energy now. Well, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us here in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute, where we teach you all about idioms in American English. Sometimes American English doesn't seem to make sense. Like this.
Gloria has a lot of things going on in her life right now.
Yes, she does. Her parents are sick, her car's not working, she's building a new house, and she just got a new job.
Wow, that's a lot of stress. One more thing and she's gonna be a basket case.
Will Gloria really become a container for baskets? I don't think so. If you experience a lot of stress or try to handle too many things at the same time, your life might become very difficult. The nervous strain or tension might wear you out and leave you with a sense of hopelessness. That's what a basket case means. And that's English in a Minute.